Hello everybody, my name is Megan Meredith and I did my community sustainability project case study on Forest Park, Illinois, where I live. Forest Park is about 7 miles west of Chicago and we have a population of about 14,000 people. And we're kind of at a crossroads of 290 and where the L tracks end for the green line and where the L tracks end for the blue line right next to Oak Park here. And we have a per capita income of about 34,000 and a poverty level of 7%. Uh, we've actually shrunk in population since the 2010 census by 8%, and we have an employment rate that's higher than the state at 7%. Um, but there is a lot of zoning that we have. We have a large business district along Madison. We've got multifamily housing in this area, as well as single-family housing. We also have a lot of cemeteries here in White and a lot of industrial areas and a Walmart as well. And we're very accessible to schools within our area, a lot of private and a lot of public, and which kind of makes us a diverse economy. However, I knocked us down a point on the Puget Sound sustainability survey because of our efficient use of materials and energy. I wouldn't say is totally efficient, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. And economic opportunity wise, because we do have a low or a high unemployment rate, I kind of knocked us down on the UN's report as well. So talking about housing, we have kind of a mix of these multi-family structures of apartments as well as these single-family houses that have been converted to multi-family housing, and a lot of rehabbing of our single-family housing as well because they were built back in the 1910s. Such an example of my house was built back in 1914. And the village is actually doing a reduction in these multifamily homes and converting them back into single family, as well as doing a lot of maintenance in the front of these apartment buildings. And we have a huge kind of contract in building a lot of new luxury affordable condos and townhouse is in the area as well. So I kind of put us at a little bit higher than the average middle for adequate housing. But again, I wouldn't say that we're necessarily resource efficient, but it is affordable for just about everybody of economic status. Talking about transportation, like I said before, we're at a huge crossroads. We're at the end of two L lines, which take people in and out of the city, and a lot of buses around our area as well. We do have a large Highway 290 that runs right through our town, which gets congested, of course, during rush hours, and it also has a propensity to flood because of its low-lying to the surrounding area. And IDOT actually has assessed our area of that stretch of highway and has a proposal to kind of widen it around the Harlem exits. So that's kind of a positive for us. And as for the L lines, they're a little bit older. They run on an electric, and quite frankly, the infrastructure is just old and getting crumbled, and it's not as efficient as it could be. So I put us down a little bit further on the idea of efficiency at the Puget Sound. But I would say that our traffic conditions, not desirable, but our access to public transport and the fact that our roads and highways are still usable on the UN brings us up sustainably as well. We're a culturally diverse community, And we have a lot of involvement with a lot of things throughout the year. People get involved. We've got a park district. There's a lot of softball tournaments and pool stuff available to everybody. There's parks and recreation areas, dog parks, all of that. So that kind of brings us a little bit of high marks for a lot of the social and government and education. Our education, our high school district is not very good. In fact, we're one of those Illinois failing schools. And a lot of people either move out of the district before their kids get into middle school or high school, or those of them who can afford to pay for private school do pay for private school. So education-wise, I wouldn't say that we're the best compared to our neighbors to the east. Um, and we do also have a lot of thefts and burglary around the area, like packages getting stolen off of porches and in house thefts and car thefts and that and the multifamily unit housing, actually our police department has a crime unit for that because of a lot of drug issues and domestic abuse and theft and burglary there as well. Uh, Environmental management is where I think we could work a lot better on our sustainable aspects and being sustainable. This is where I think we kind of fall flat in our village. There's two brownfield sites that have been cleaned up for the EPA, but we lost funding due to budget cuts through the state of Illinois. And so a lot of those are still open areas with fences around them, and they could essentially be converted into something better if we had the funds to do so. And there's no really, we're right butt up against the Des Plaines River, and there's a lot of cemeteries that are actually bordering them. But I think that like with these two forest preserves, we could have a lot more access of like a river walk or even education about our rivers. And I work in a community out west that borders the Kane County River, the Fox River, and they do a lot of education and outreach and such with their community members on the river and how they're a part of their watershed. And Forest Park doesn't do that. In fact, they kind of largely ignore the Des Plaines River. So I'd like to kind of see a little bit more sustainability and connection with our river and our impacts on it. And we also are part, supposedly, of an Illinois prairie bike path that stretches down the river as well, but we don't really have a bike-friendly community, nor signs that talk about this Illinois prairie bike path. Um, Air quality is also hugely impacted by the expressway that runs through town and the two elevated train lines that go through, and the industry that happens. Like my house is right next to the Ferrera Candy Company, and you can always smell the sticky sweetness in the air. Although it's delicious, it's still not good for air quality. And then we've got Chicago nearby as well, with that air quality pollution. We do have a recycling program and garbage pickup, but again, on the streets, I don't see a lot of garbage receptacles, nor recycling receptacles, nor really education or a push for recycling within the community either, which I think could be beefed up a lot. Energy is another huge thing that I brought up in my written report, that there's not really a push for a lot of efficiency, other than they just put in a couple, especially on main streets like Harlem. They put in LED lights, but otherwise a push for renewable energy or just alternative energy sources or efficiency within local businesses is not really spearheaded by the village, which I'd like to see. Here's where we have our large issues is water. Chicagoland is known for frequent flooding with strong storms because we have very old infrastructure and a low capacity for our sewers and wastewater to be contained. And we have what we call as a combined sewer, so all of the rainwater and all of the sewage go into one pipe and then end up in a river or Lake Michigan, or really should be in a wastewater treatment facility, but it doesn't always get there, especially with backflows after strong storms. And the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Chicagoland has a huge project to kind of contain all of this. Like, they're putting in new storm sewer drains that are massive. It is a huge engineering project that really won't be done until 2029. And even then, it can't hold all of the population's water, especially because Chicagoland is very large land-wise. So our village is actually called in city engineers and came up with a plan a little bit more to kind of help combat things like this. And these are pictures from 2010 in our last large flood that happened. And they came up with ideas like green alleys, impermeable pavements, and road inlets that kind of drain into their own separate combined sewer that dumps into the Des Plaines River, so it's all the stormwater rather than all the sewage. And then rain barrels is another huge initiative just for the whole entire area. And so they've been working on getting money and funds to kind of put together these ideas, and sewer and wastewater tunnel enlargements is another huge thing. But I thought it was kind of good that they want to kind of separate the wastewater from the sewage. And then I would say our overall for everything, it's not, Forest Park's not perfectly sustainable, and there's a lot of things that we need to work on, but more importantly, I think a lot of those ideas are kind of based in the environmental realm of sustainability, which I'd like to see a push for in the future. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and have a great night.